Hello, I'm Harvey Harkeen, and this is Harking Back, a podcast about the pop culture of a lifetime. Whose life? Mine. I'm going back through every year I've been alive and finding out what was going on in that year. This week we're looking at 2003. 2003, I was 21. My goodness, we were well into the noughties. Everyone was living in the future by now. It was crazy. It was great. What happened in 2003? I moved out of home. I moved into a flat for the first time. I went flatting. Moved out, flew the coop, left the nest. I moved in for my third and final year of university with some friends, Gareth and Ryan. Gareth, I'm still very good friends with. Ryan, I still keep in touch sometimes, but it's funny because Ryan introduced Gareth and I. We were his mutual friends, and Gareth and I got on like a house on fire. It was great. We moved into a flat because the Greek restaurant where I was working at, they owned a pretty shitty flat on Memorial Avenue in Christchurch, and it was the coldest house in the world. It would seem like haunted, but ghosts would even go, "This is too cold. We're out of here." It was amazing. I was just so happy to get out and be living on my own. My goodness. Gareth got me into comics. He is the guy that got me reading comics lots. Like I used to read some as a kid, but I kind of fell out a little bit. And he had a whole bunch, and we started reading and consuming these comics like no one's business. And I think the main series we read was the Ultimate Universe that Marvel had brought out. So Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Fantastic Four, Ultimate X-Men, and we couldn't get enough. We just devoured these comics. Also, Ryan's dad used to work fixing arcade machines. And so we got an arcade machine in our lounge. I think I mentioned it in one of the very first podcasts because the game we got on this arcade machine was Snow Bros, which was like by the same people that made Bobble Bobble. And the three of us became insanely good at this game because we had it in our lounge. And also we made a rule that like on Saturdays, we had our cleaning roster, but on Saturdays, the person who was lowest on the leaderboard had to do the dishes. And holy shit, we got so goddamn good at this game. Oh, I think I mentioned in one of the earlier podcasts, I went up to Wellington at one point and was in a comic book store, and they had this arcade machine, and there was a kid playing it, and he died on like the third level. I was like, ugh. I said, "Kid, do you mind if I have a go?" And he said, "Yeah." And I started like just destroying and demolishing, and his eyes were popping out of his head, going like, "What? How have you done this?" And I couldn't tell him it's because I've thrown my life away playing this game as an adult. We were 21. I think for most of us, the three of us, I think it was the first time for all of us leaving home. Three boys. I hate to admit this, but we put up pictures of women in our lounge from like guys' magazines, from like FHM and stuff like that. We cut them out, we put them on it, we plastered our lounge wall. It's so cringe looking back now, but it was a bonding time, like, because it was like the first night we moved in, we kind of started cutting them out, hanging them all up, and decided, where should she go? Where should she? Oh God, I don't know what we were thinking. We were just young and horny boys. All right, that's all it was. And we thought this is a cool idea, and like not thinking for a second, like if a woman walks in here, they're just going to go, "This is the worst lounge in the world. Let's leave immediately before we shame these boys to death." Anyway. It was a guy's flat. It's a guy's flat. We had a great time. I loved it. We used to love to throw a house party. We made some pretty damn good vodka jelly. We threw an awesome James Bond themed party, which by the way, I would mention I would say it's a pretty good theme, a James Bond theme, because you can go as hard or as casual as you like. Just wear a nice suit, you're James Bond. Go hard out, make yourself a steel jaw, your Jaws. You can go as hard or as little as you want. Russian soldier, henchman, go, whatever. It's great. You could be femme fatale, yeah, ball gown, cocktail dress, assassin in, leather hitman outfit, whatever you want. It's great. And we made vodka jelly, and we made so much vodka jelly for this one party that it was left over. The other thing I should mention is that collectively we had a flat account. We all put money into the flat account. We were doing our shopping one day, and we were walking from the supermarket in the mall back to the car, and we noticed that the game store was having a sale on a PlayStation 2. And we all collectively decided that, of course, we need to put a PlayStation 2 on the flat account. And that was the first console I ever owned / co-owned 3 ways, was a PlayStation 2. Oh, I loved it. the game we played on the PlayStation 2 the most was Virtua Fighter 4. Gareth and I especially played this. We battled hard. And when we did this party and we had all this vodka jelly left over, we had one night where we just played drinking Virtua Fighter 4. The loser of each fight had to do a shot of vodka jelly. And if you got perfected, if like the guy beat you one round without taking any damage, you had to take an extra shot as well. We got hammered. It did not help as well that this flat was on a busy road, and it was just like a few doors down from a 24-hour BP petrol station. And the reason we loved it was because this BP was a big one that had like pies, like had hot food. So we were the guys coming in steaming at like 2 a.m. going, I want a sausage roll and a mince and cheese pie. And we'd walk in and the guy could see us and he'd be like, oh my God, here they are again. Anyway, it was a great year. Had so much fun doing it. What else? I'm finishing my degree in 2003. This is my last year completing my computer science degree. Computer science, can you believe it? We had a year-long project that we did, and I quite liked it. I really enjoyed it. I quite liked the crunch time of it. The last week when we had so much to get done, I remember staying at a friend's house, one of the guys in our team, and we kind of took turns. One would sleep, and the other two would work on it, and then the other one would sleep just so we could get it done on time. To finish my degree, I needed to find a few more points somewhere to pick up so I had to pick up an extra paper. And I realized that I could just get those points if I took like a first-year Spanish paper. And so I did, much to my parents' disappointment. But I convinced them because I was like, hey, look, I can speak Spanish to you guys, but I don't know the actual grammar of Spanish. And they're like, okay, I suppose that's something. And in the first tutorial session, we're going around the room and the tutor's saying, like, this is how we say my name is and where I'm from. And she gets to me and I have to say, in Spanish, mi nombre es Javier, soy de aquí. And she immediately responds in Spanish saying, ¿de dónde eres? Which means, like, where are you from? And I was like, oh, my parents are from Nicaragua. And she was like, okay, you fucking time waster. Anyway, got those points. But what I didn't realize is that you needed to turn up to the tutorials to that paper. I just thought I'll take it and then I'll just come in and nail the final exam because it's first year Spanish. But you had to turn up. 50% of the paper was going to tutorials, so I had to go to all these tutorials. Backfired. I had my 21st birthday in 2003, which is the big birthday in New Zealand. I remember Dad on the night, he'd put some money on the bar tab. I think he put like 700 New Zealand behind the bar. And he said, let me know when it's getting close. And I remember several times during the night, they came up to him and said, sir, the bar tab's just gone over $700. And he went, let it ride. Because everyone was having a good time. And they came up to him and they said, so the bar tab's gone over $1,000. And he went, let it ride. And they came up to him and said, so the bar tab's gone over $1,500. And he said, cut it off. I remember. All right, let's look at things happening in 2003 around the world. In 2003, Ugg boots are taken over. Remember Ugg boots? No, sorry, what do I mean remember? Ugg boots. Remember when they came out? It was around 2003. Slippers become fashion. I love that comfort won out over style. I used to hate Ugg boots, but now as a man in his 40s, I completely misjudge them. I've never tried one on, but I totally get it. Sheepskin interior, total comfort. I found out that they're named Ugg because the inventor's wife, after he made his first pair, she said they look ugly. So they're literally ugly boots. Not that anyone gives a shit anymore. Also in 2003, Wicked, the musical, debuts, as does Avenue Q. Avenue Q, if you don't know about it, it's a musical done by puppets. Imagine like if Sesame Street was dirty. Like they've got a song in there that goes, the internet is very great, very good for porn. And it's all done by puppets. Like, there's big eyes, look child-friendly, but they're not. I've never seen it. I really want to because I've heard some of the songs. And anything done by puppets, you got me. I love puppets. Until they're heckling me. I don't know if I've told this story. I'll tell it again. I was doing a festival once. It was during a day, and there's not many people in the audience, and we're all going out and having a tough time on stage. And I'm out there and I'm just starting to get them on site. And suddenly these two puppeteers with the puppets come in and start promoting the show they're going to be doing later on. And they're sitting down and it's like they don't even notice there's a show going on. And they start talking to some audience members. And I'm going, excuse me, hi. And The puppets turn around. The puppeteers don't turn around. The puppets turn around. Well, they both do, but everyone's looking at the puppets. And I go, sorry guys, there's a show going on. And the puppets look at each other and they go, oh, what sort of show? And I go, guys, it's a comedy show going on. And this is one of the best heckles I've ever got. One of the puppets goes, oh, I love jokes. Are there going to be any? And the whole audience goes, oh, you cannot win against the puppet. And I was like, fuck off, Kermit. But the puppets won. You can't out heckle a puppet. They got me good. So when people ask, what's your best heckle? I'm like, these goddamn puppets. Chris Martin and Gwyneth Paltrow get married in 2003. I used to really love Chris Martin. I used to really like Coldplay. I liked their music. I liked their style. And then I don't know what it was about this one incident, but Annie and I were watching footage of a Coldplay concert, I think in Brazil or something. It's one of these massive stadium gigs. And there's a massive catwalk from the stage out into the middle of the crowd. And Chris Martin goes out in the middle of one of the songs. He's walking down the catwalk. And then suddenly he just kind of drops to the floor and just starts writhing around on the floor like he's a contemporary dancer. But like it's just got this air of like him, like he's closing his eyes and he's like writhing around and kind of like groping his body like it's like the music is all too much for him. And Annie and I just both looked at each other and just went, ugh. Like just... Ugh. You can imagine the rest of the band looking at him going like, oh, there he goes again. He's about to go get lost in the moment again. And just that little moment, watching Chris Martin writhe around in the magic and ecstasy of his own music was enough to really put us both off Coldplay. Sorry, specifically Chris Martin. Yeah. Anyway. In 2003, Britney Spears moves on from her divorce from the previous year to Justin Timberlake. She moves on by kissing Madonna at the VMAs. Remember this? This was a big thing like, oh my god, Madonna and Britney Spears kissed. It wasn't hot. Like I think they were going for like, oh my god, this is going to make everyone tune in and see how hot this is. It was not hot. It looked like because Madonna at this age has just started to defy everyone's expectations. Everyone's starting to think that she's a bit like she's got a picture of a portrait of herself up in the attic. But it's not that great a portrait because she's still clearly aging, but doing everything known to man in the world of science to stop the aging process. This kiss looks like, like some grannies that if you go to kiss them on the cheek, they will forcibly kiss you on the lips. It reeks of that. It reeks of that, very much so. It looks like Britney kissing her grandma. That's what I remember it like. Okay, I'm not age shaming. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to do this thing for publicity's sake, don't expect some opinions. Didn't know this. Madonna also wrote a children's book, or maybe a couple, but I know she definitely wrote one called The English Roses. Remember that, kids? Hey, let's all sit down to get you off to sleep. Let's read you a book by Madonna. Once there was a girl with conical breasts. Blah blah blah. Anyway, also in 2003, John Ritter dies. You might remember him from Eight Simple Rules for Dating My Daughter, or the shop manager from Bad Santa. I was introduced to John Ritter by my parents. He was in a series called Three's Company, which ran from 1977 to 1983. And in it, he played there was three people living in a flat. It's a bit like early Friends. Like, imagine Friends in the 70s. But there's two girls and a guy. And the landlord... This is the 70s. The landlord doesn't like the idea of unmarried men and women living together. So they come up with this lie that John Ritter's character is gay. And they tell the landlord that, and he believes them. And a lot of the comedy comes from him mocking him for being gay. Because it's the 70s. Imagine that. 2003 is the year the Da Vinci Code is the book that everyone is reading, except me. I never read it. Do you remember when that podcast Serial came out and everyone was listening to it? This felt like that, but with a book, the Da Vinci Code. Everyone was reading it, except me, so I don't know. Did you read it? Let me know. iTunes is launched in 2003, and I think that's the last time any musician made any money. Because I think streaming might be the worst thing that happened to music artists, because you can just be so selective now on, I just want to hear this one song or this group of songs. You used to get to know a group or a band or a single artist because you would buy their CD. And, you might know about 3 hits that have been released on the radio, but you would get to listen to the rest of their music on that album. You would listen to an album in its entirety and you would understand why they put songs in certain orders. Like, they curated this. They didn't just throw it all out there and just landed in this order. They were like, okay, I want to use this song here and this song. And I bet you other songs on that album that you'd never heard before meant more to them than the singles that you know and love, And streaming comes along, iTunes comes along, and suddenly, yes, people can buy albums, but you start buying individual songs, a bit like singles. But you would never buy singles because they were or CD singles because they were just not as economical. Anyway, what I'm saying is all the money they used to get from CD sales and stuff, when streaming comes along, suddenly they're making a fraction of that. That's why you start seeing in the last 10, 15 years, a whole bunch of artists come out of retirement and go on tour again. Because that's how they need to make their money. Anyway, 2003, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy debuts. The original one. I know Netflix did a remake, but this was the original one. And the conceit for this was they get 5 gay guys together, 5 queer guys, and they go around and help straight guys sort their life out. Like they give them a makeover and get them out of whatever rut they're in. And they've got, what I always found funny about this is they've got 5 guys and each is an expert in something, is going to help you one's the fashion guy, so he's going to change your wardrobe. One's the hair guy, so he's going to give you a new haircut. One guy is the food guy that's going to show you like, oh, these are the foods you should eat and here's how to make us a meal. One guy is the culture guy, I think it was. That was like, I'm going to get you 2 tickets to this cool thing that's happening in town. And then the last guy renovates your house. Talk about like one guy's there going, I picked you out some trousers, and this guy's like, okay, we're gonna knock out this wall, we're gonna get a new whole lounge set in here. And so they take the guy away to do all these things, and they come back and they've renovated his house. And you can tell which guy is the one that renovated the house because he is exhausted. He's the one while all the rest are like clapping and cheering. He's the one just out of breath going like, you go, girl. Just, whew. Also, your life sucks if these guys turned up at your door. What do they call them? The Fab Five. Yeah. Because people would nominate like, hey, my dad he's in desperate need of the Fab Five. And they turn up and he's like, oh, wow, they're going to turn my life around. But as the show got popularity, if these guys turned up at your door, imagine if you didn't know. Imagine if you just heard a knock on the door and you open the door and there's these guys there and you're like, oh shit, my life sucks. I didn't realize how far gone it was, but clearly I am in desperate need of their help. What if they quit on you? What if they couldn't help you? What if the experts of turning your life around quit and just went, no, this guy's beyond help. We cannot help him. In 2003, also on TV, Arrested Development comes out. This series is so good. If you're looking for a comedy series that you haven't watched, Arrested Development is very, very good. And I'm amazed this came out of the US because it is a type of comedy that just trusts that the joke will come across rather than kind of like most other. So there's no canned laughter. There's no like, I made a joke and everyone just kind of stands around going, oh, what a good joke, And it's not, you're not beaten over the head with every joke. This show, Arrested Development, is really a masterclass in character dynamics and how they develop over time. And because the comedy comes from the dynamics of the characters, and they only get better as the show goes on. And an example of like how they can just trust a joke will grow is there's a running joke in there that no one in the family can do a chicken impersonation. Like Michael, the guy that's played by Jason Bateman, is the straight man of the family. And one of his brothers says like, oh, don't be a chicken, Michael. And he starts going like, "Cock-a-ca-cha, cock-a-ca-cha," doing these actions that no one ever does when they're trying to call someone a chicken. And he's like, is that your chicken impression? And he was like, yeah, don't be a chicken. And they don't linger on it, they don't labor on it. And then slowly over time, talking to the rest of the family, you realize that no one in this family can do a chicken impersonation, and they've all got their own bizarre one. And rather than just any other show would try to make a big laugh about a terrible chicken impersonation from the get-go, but just having the first one be a bit odd And then slowly the next one is a little bit more odd. It kind of goes up this absurdity curve. So by the time you realize you see the last member of the family doing their chicken impersonation, the return of the investment on this joke is so good. And the show is just full of like slow payoffs like that. Like the more you watch this, the better it gets. I hate to be one of those people that's like, oh, you got to wait till season 3. It's funny from the start, but it just gets better the more time you give it. You know? Anyway, if you've seen it, you know what I mean. And if you haven't, go check it out. Watch a couple of episodes. I'm not going to be one of these people that's like, oh, you got to give it 3 seasons. Fuck that. If you don't like something after 3 episodes, I'm not watching anymore. Okay? But the amount of times I've done that where I watch the first 3 episodes and then I'll like look at some article and they say, oh, that really found itself in the 5th episode or the 4th episode. Sorry, too late. I don't know. I know I'm going to be a hypocrite because I'm going to tell you about some other series where that exactly happened and I'll say, you got to stick with it. Anyway. Let's look at movies that come out in 2003. Things like, let's paint a picture. Things like The Last Samurai are coming out. Ben Affleck's Daredevil is out there. Oh boy. I remember last podcast episode, I was talking about how 2002 franchise movies are just making so much money. So suddenly studios are going, let's make franchise movies. And suddenly Spider-Man was a big hit. So studios are going, what rights do we have for superheroes? Someone went Daredevil, and they went, we can make it work. And this movie is so bad. It's really bad. I think all you need to know about this movie is, like, if you haven't seen it, just YouTube Daredevil, Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner fight. So Jennifer Garner's Elektra is in this movie as well. Colin Farrell plays an absolutely bizarre version of Bullseye. Michael Clarke Duncan is in it as King. Like, the cast is not bad. They're not bad actors. None of them are bad actors. The movie is bad. It's not good. I think this is one of the... also, you still get a Stan Lee cameo in this. That was good. So when you talk about... I think this was really the benchmark for bad superhero movies. Ever since, as you get into like MCU and everything, like... The benchmark was always like, hey, no, that wasn't bad. It was not Ben Affleck Daredevil bad. And there's a reason why we have not seen Ben Affleck's Daredevil come back out of retirement. Speaking of good superhero movies, we get X2, the X-Men sequel, X-Men United, which sounds like an amazing football team. But this was a sequel done well. It just builds on the world. We slowly, it doesn't go crazy because X-Men has so many characters. It doesn't go crazy with cramming too many down your throat. I would argue that they did not have enough Cyclops on screen, but that's because I'm a massive Cyclops fan. But this was a great sequel. It gave everyone, like, just expand on, continue the story, give them in a new environment, a new threat. And it's the first time you see Wolverine straight up murdering people with his claws, which was just so refreshing. Just because in the first one he's got these claws, but they always find ways to like make them non-lethal. And in this one, there's a scene where a SWAT team descends on the X-Men's mansion and Wolverine just goes, okay, I'm going to kill all of you. As well he does with his claws. And everyone was just like, yes, this is what we wanted. Amazing. The Nightcrawler scene also at the top of that. At the beginning of this, Nightcrawler, amazing. Terminator 3 comes out this year. Oh boy, Terminator 3. The Terminator franchise only had 2 good Terminator movies. And Terminator 3 was the first one that made us realize that. I mean, it's like 11 years after that last movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger has aged a lot. This movie just it lacked any sort of edge. It lacked any bite. It just felt like a series of action scenes kind of strung together, and you're just watching it, and halfway through you're like, I'm a bit bored of this because there's no stakes. The story's not been done well. It's just... Ugh. They played on comedy a little bit too much as well. Like, they have the Terminator put on these ridiculous glasses. It's like a sketch of itself from Terminator 2. Like, I don't think Cameron directed this one. I would be inclined to say that he didn't. Anyway, again, in true myself fashion, I'm not going to Google it right now because it's just something I forgot to. Let's just move on. Also, 2003, Kill Bill Volume 1 comes out. Tarantino's first movie since Jackie Brown. I did not care for Jackie Brown. I found it quite boring, if I'm honest. You know what? Jackie Brown is Pulp Fiction's boring, dull cousin that works in accounting, that tries to be stimulating, but is not. Kill Bill 1 is stylized. The colors are vibrant. It knows what it's doing. This is Tarantino going, I know I'm going to try and make a modern samurai revenge flick. And that's exactly what you get. I do love how it departs from live action and goes to that wonderful animated sequence for the the origins of Ori and Ishii. And it's good. It's really good. The stylized fight at the end with the bride versus the crazy 88. The swordplay, the choreography is great. It's gritty. It's visceral. It's violent as all hell. The bit where it changes to black and white, it really pays homage to like the old Akira Kurosawa samurai movies. Uma Thurman is great in it. It's got a lot of like iconic moments and iconography, like the pussy wagon. Also, you start getting things of little bits in Tarantino movies that start overlapping, like brands and stuff start overlapping. Like I think the sword, like Hattori Hanzo's sword, you see from Pulp Fiction, or it's got the same make, or it's got the same insignia on it, that sort of stuff. The opening scene, you get the Pulp Fiction story out of chronological order again. Yeah, the opening scene where she takes on, Mamba, Black Mamba. Anyway, I forgot. Anyway, that's very, very good. It's very good. It's great. It's great. Go watch it. Go watch it. However, this is when Tarantino, I think, starts getting a little bit arrogant. Because I remember at the opening credits, it says, like, you know, a so-and-so film, and it says, the fourth film by Quentin Tarantino. I'm like, okay, dude, all right, calm down. Like, when you start writing your own scripture, that's when you need to have a little look at yourself, you know? What else? Oh, in 2003, we get 3 of maybe the best Christmas movies of modern times. We get Love Actually, which I have only loved rewatching after living in the UK for the last 14 years. Elf. You get Elf. Elf is a perfect Christmas movie, and I'm so happy that Will Ferrell declined a sequel. They offered him millions and millions of dollars because Elf was a huge hit, and he was like, no, the story's good, I don't want to ruin Buddy's character by doing a sequel, and fair play to him for just saying, no, it's good, leave it alone. If you want it to say magical, leave it alone. There is a scene in Elf. You've got to know this. My wife's sister's family, they've all got a sweet tooth. Like, they love dessert is the focus of every meal in their house, and they've got all the trimmings. They've got chocolate sauce, they've got whipped cream, they've got sprinkles, they've got sweets and other lollies, chocolate, anything that you can think of dessert related that is in their house. And every time they make, like, they don't just give you a bowl of ice cream, they're like, what condiments that you can possibly think of would you want on here? And they pile it all on, and they just love their sweet food. And there's a scene in Elf where he is eating a plate of spaghetti, but before he eats it, he like piles on maple syrup and candy corns and all this sweets. And I said to my wife when we were watching, I said, looks like your sister's house. And we both just laughed our asses off. And every time we see someone piling on sweets somewhere, we're like, oh, meanwhile at your sister's house. Anyway, and also the last movie that is amazing, and I there was a time I'd watch this movie every year, is Bad Santa. Bad Santa is Billy Bob Thornton playing a mall Santa that robs the malls every year. And he is a disgusting Santa. He pisses his suit. He gets drunk. He's a degenerate. He's an absolute lowlife. And I love this movie. I love it. I think it's my favorite Christmas movie ever. Because A, it's so funny, and B, it is actually a great story about turning your life around. And the criticisms of Bad Santa are always like, it's too disgusting. It's like, why did they need to make it this disgusting? Why does he need to be a drunk who pisses himself, who does this, who does all that? And it's like, well, do you realize the worse off he is at the start of the movie, the bigger the redemption at the end? So isn't that like, if his life was only a little bit crap, like, it's not as satisfying, but because he's the worst human in the world, his redemption at the end is bigger? And isn't that a better kind of indication of Christmas? Isn't that a better, like, what am I trying to say? Better cheerleading force? Cheerleading force, what a terrible choice of words to say. Isn't that a better, what am I trying to say? A better, doesn't that advocate Christmas better? I have not worded this well at all, but hopefully you can see what I mean. Like, the bigger the fall, the bigger the redeem, the higher the payoff. is what it is. And also it's hilarious along the way. Just because he's so jaded, and having done a lot of, over my time, having to dress up to be a character at Christmas parties and stuff, I totally relate. He hates doing it for all these reasons. I get it. I really do get it. Let's look at the top 5 movies of 2003. Top 5? Yeah, I did get that right. Sorry, my brain is in the toilet today. Top 5 movies of 2003. At number 5 is Bruce Almighty. They're really trying to squeeze the last of that Jim Carrey box office draw out with this one. Like, it's got late 90s feel. It works. It works. It's not Jim Carrey's best. It's a fun movie. It's not definitely like a one you need to rewatch. The funny thing is, this one is where I would argue Steve Carell steals the show in this one. There's a bit where he's playing that news anchor and he gets possessed by Bruce to saying gibberish things on a live news feed. And it is hilarious. It is the funniest bit in the movie. It's the funniest moment. Do you know how good you have to be to out physical comedy Jim Carrey in a Jim Carrey movie? And that's what Steve Carell does here. And from that, I think that's where we started seeing more of Steve Carell. Then we see him in things like Anchorman and other things. He starts getting, 40-Year-Old Virgin. The work here, just Google that one scene. If you haven't seen it, YouTube it. You'll see Steve Carell, prime Steve Carell. It's so good. All right, number 4, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Pirates, they did really well here. Pirates of the Caribbean. Maybe, can you believe it? It was a good movie done by Disney Studios. The funny thing was, pirate movies had really gone out of favor. Like, for a while, I think after, the success of Hook, there was a time where people were like, yeah, pirate movies, it's high seas and stuff. They're good. And then there was a movie around 1997 or something like that called Cutthroat Island with Gina Davis. And at the time, it was the most expensive movie ever made. A bit like, Waterworld. Anytime you have things set on water or in water or during period pieces, right? The production skyrockets because suddenly everything has to be waterproofed and water safetied, and anything, water adds a whole lot of cost, and also anything in period adds a lot of cost because suddenly every piece of costume has to be of the period. Every prop, every set, everything on the lens has to be of the period. So that adds a shitload of money, and pirate movies combine both. They're on the high seas, and suddenly you need a ship, and everyone on the ship to look like they belong on a pirate ship. So this movie, Cutthroat Island, came out, cost around $100 million to make, and it bombed hard, lost the studio so much money that no one wanted to touch a pirate movie again for years. And then Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl comes out. And it's great. It's so much fun. It's a great movie. I'd happily rewatch it. Johnny Depp is perfect as Captain John Sparrow. The introduction of Captain John Sparrow is, again, one of the best introductions of a character ever. Because it does this beautiful thing where you see him, it's a close-up of him, of his face, looking out over the sea. And you realize he's standing on top of a mast, like the highest point on a ship. So he looks like, oh, wow, look, he's in total command of his ship. He's on the highest point. He looks sure of himself. And as the camera pulls back further, you see that the ship is sinking and he's on the mast because that's the only part of the ship that's above water now. And it's pulling into a dock. And as the ship sinks its last, he gets close enough to the dock to just step off the sinking ship onto the dock. That's the introduction you get of Captain Jack Sparrow, that he stepped off a sinking ship and he's kind of fine with it and he's just kind of looking for his next adventure. That is an amazing character introduction. That tells you so much about this character, and he said nothing. All we've seen is a pull-out shot of 10 seconds or so, and it tells you everything you need to know about this character. The chemistry between Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom is good. The sword fights are exciting. The story does a great job of starting in this world of reality and talking about the curse of was it real, is it not? And then by the end, it adds the supernatural element. But by that point, you're invested enough to go with it. It's really very good. It's a great pirate movie. I would love to watch it with my daughter, but I know she would freak the fuck out. At number 3 in 2003 is The Matrix Reloaded. Oh boy. And also the funny thing was in 2003 also there's The Matrix Revolutions comes out. I can see why the Matrix Revolutions, the first one, Matrix Reloaded, the first one of the sequels that comes out, gets into the top 5, because everyone was so excited about a Matrix sequel, and they went and saw this, and they went, I think they kind of fucked it. They shot them both back to back, I think, and released them both in the same year. A bit with like Star Wars Episode 2, they just made it so complicated. And the big lessons from the Matrix Reloaded or the Matrix sequels are CGI does not great action make. And I can see around this time CGI is kicking off, and they would have been like, they would have had this excitement of like, we can be, if we go all in on CGI and really put a lot of money and resources behind it, we can be one of the first people that really make it happen for us and like open this new world. But they relied so hard on it, and if you go back and look at it, even back then, it didn't look good. It clearly looked like cartoonish. You could clearly see when they switched from live action to CGI. So CGI does not great action make. And also, convoluted dialogue does not make you smarter. The whole conceit of the Matrix sequels is you find out the bigger story of what's actually happening with the Matrix, and you find out that this is actually the 7th iteration of humans rising up and having a war with the machines before they all go back to status quo again and return to the Matrix. And they have this scene with the architect at the end of the second movie. It is the most needlessly wordy, bloated script. You can almost feel the screenwriters kind of like pleasuring themselves as they write it. It's just going like, oh my God, I am God's gift to screenwriting. And it's just rubbish. It's just rubbish. It's just... They went through they thought about what they wanted to say, which still was complicated, and they went through a thesaurus and picked out the biggest word they could for each word they used and went, I'm a genius. And what it does is it just pisses off your audience. Anyway, I fought for ages to try. I wanted to love these sequels. I was their cheerleader. I was their advocate for so long. I'd be like, oh no, but it's actually good because of this, and this action actually was the next logical step because of Neo's newfound powers and everything. And I think about 10 years later, I just had to admit, no, they suck. They suck. They ruined it. They ruined it. A lot of New Zealand actors got jobs in these though. Number 2 in 2003 was Finding Nemo. Solid Pixar movie. I mean, it's a little jarring now when you hear Dory's voice because it's Ellen DeGeneres, but very good, very funny. And it looked great. You know, I think they really... This is where, you know, people that went all in on CGI, Pixar, who had just been happy to do it for the last 4... They've already got 4 movies under their belt. You know, like the action scenes in the Matrix sequels looked closer to like Toy Story 1 than Finding Nemo. You know, by the time they get to Finding Nemo, Pixar have ironed out a lot of kinks, and it looks great. To this day, it looks fantastic. And number one is Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Lord of the Rings: Return of the King is so good. It won 11 Academy Awards, and all the kind of like production ones, you know, like Best Adaptive Screenplay and Best Costume and Makeup and Cinematography, and like it didn't win any for acting. It wins Best Picture, Best Director, and I'm glad the other 2 before it didn't win Best Picture. And because if The Fellowship or The Two Towers had won Best Picture, suddenly the pressure is on for the subsequent movies to win Best Picture as well. Like if Fellowship of the Ring won Best Picture, there would be pressure for the next 2 to win Best Picture as well. All right? And if Two Towers won Best Picture, there's pressure on this one. The way they left it for this one validates the whole trilogy because everyone are nice, kind of like, we got it, finally. We were working towards this, and we got it. And you know what? Pound for pound, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is probably the best cinematic trilogy out there. I mean, it's not my favorite franchise. It's very good movies, but in terms of quality and what they delivered, it is so good. I can't even think of another trilogy where each movie is really, really good. There is no dud movie in this trilogy. They all form part of a coherent trilogy. They're all very important parts. You can't have the trilogy. If you took one of these out, the trilogy is incomplete. It does not work. So it's tight. It's got the cohesiveness. It's got things that other trilogies lack. Like it's got a clear vision from the start. Like you compare it to like the sequel, Skywalker, this episode 789 of Star Wars, no vision, zero vision of where this trilogy is going. But they stick to this clear vision because they stick to the source material. Another thing that trilogies don't do is stick and honor the source material. Because they filmed them all pretty much at the same time, the production was brutal, but it's efficient. And it's consistent. Yeah, because the team stays consistent. It's not like the director from the first movie couldn't come back for the second, or they didn't change directors every movie. Like the team is all the same all through the movie, so you get this beautiful consistency and similar feel for everything. The quality stays all across the 3 movies. It's really, really good. They had the Return of the King premiere in New Zealand, in Wellington, and I went up to see it because I was visiting a friend, and my friend Jake, who was a massive Lord of the Rings fan, before the movies came out. He knew the books inside and out. He loved the movies. He said, let's go to the premiere red carpet. And it was downtown, down the centre of Wellington. And we go there, and it's just, I remember, lined up with young kids, specifically girls. I think they were waiting for Orlando Bloom. Excuse me. And we're there. And suddenly the stars start walking down the red carpet, and I suddenly get swept up in it. I'm like, oh my God, there they are. I find myself inching closer to the barriers. And I see Viggo Mortensen, Aragorn, coming down the red carpet, and everyone's got like books out. Like, this is before cell phones had good cameras, so everyone's getting him to sign things. He's doing lots of signatures, and they've all got their books or photos or whatever for him to sign. And he's getting closer to me. I'm like, oh shit, I've got nothing for him to sign. And he gets right next to me, and he looks at me, and he kind of looks at me expectantly, like, what do you got to sign? And I said, Aragorn, sign my face. And he goes, you're not going to sue me or anything. I said, no. And he goes, okay. And I turned my cheek out there, and he signs my face. And then Legolas, Orlando Bloom, is walking down 5 minutes behind him, signing so many autographs. And girls are screaming for him. And again, he gets close, and I show him like the side of my face that's got the Aragorn signature autograph. And I go to him, Legolas, sign my face. And I turn the other cheek, and he's like, okay, cool. And he signs my other cheek. And then Gimli walks by, John Rhys Davies. And he's not signing as many autographs, but he's there. And he gets up to me, and I go, Gimli, sign my face. And he just goes, no. He just keeps walking. So that's why my favourites are Aragorn and Legolas in that movie. Right. I used to have a photo of that because, of course, after that happened, I got Jake to take a photo of it. Didn't have a digital camera. I had to process that photo. I had it. I lost it. I don't know where it is, but it happened. So let's look at songs in 2003. I have so little connection to any of the songs that I found in 2003. I mean, to paint you a picture, the songs that are coming out in 2003 are things like Where Is the Love by Black Eyed Peas, Bring Me to Life by Evanescence, which went with the Daredevil soundtrack. I love this song because it's just so angsty. It is early noughties angst. It's in all its glory. Things like Beautiful by Christina Aguilera come out. I'm With You by Avril Lavigne. The top 5, okay, we'll just list them. Top 5. Number 5, When I'm Gone by Three Doors Down. Number 4, Crazy in Love by Beyonce. Watch this music video. When she starts singing, there's a bit where she's just walking down the street, and then she kind of like does this twist into like this weird sitting position. It looks like she falls and just styles it out. Watch it. You tell me. I swear she fell, but styled it out, and they said, let's keep it. It looks great. Anyway, number 4 is Crazy in Love by Beyonce. Number 3, Get Busy by Sean Paul, which was just playing at every club at the time. Number 2, Ignition by R. Kelly. Hasn't aged well. And number 1, Into Club by 50 Cent. I know these songs because they were playing everywhere in clubs, and I was going out to clubs at this time. I was in university, we went out to town. That's what you would do. You'd go have some drinks at someone's house, you go preload, and then you go to town. They used to have this thing which was really, really good. They used to have these midnight buses, so everyone would go to town in the centre of Christchurch. And then at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock in the morning, they had free buses that would go to different corners of the city. And it was just this incentive that the council paid for to try to get drunk people home. Because, maybe there was a shortage of taxis, or I don't know. But and it got to the point where you go out in town, you kind of tell your friends, okay, which bus are you getting? Which coaches? These look like coaches that take tourists around places. They're big buses. And you'd be like, oh, I'm going to get the 1 a.m. tonight, I think. And they were free. And they're just loaded up with drunk people. And that they didn't drive us all into the sea is a testament to Christchurch City Council. Thank you very much for that. So I know these songs, but I think I was really starting to lose touch with music. I mean, I was looking at the list of the biggest singles of this year, and I didn't know 90 of them. 90 of them I never heard of them in my life. And I think this is when you go through stages of new music. I mean, I think, like, you start off when, stage one is when you hear and like new music, and it's no effort because it's all new to you and it just happens and you're just open to it. At number two, I think the next stage is when you actively start trying to seek out new music because you realize that I don't think I'm listening to that much new music. The next stage is when you're in denial that you're out of touch of listening to new music. You're like, no, I'm still young. And then the last stage, which I got to and I think just stayed there quite happily, was when you're very happy that you're out of touch. You got what you like, and you're like, I'm going to stay there. I'm good. All right, let's look at video games. In 2003, Into the Matrix comes out, which sells loads, but it's such a crap game. Command & Conquer Generals comes out in 2003, and I think it's the best RTS, real-time strategy game that had such woeful publicity that kind of came and went without much fanfare. It was such a good game. It was so much fun. This was when we would have LAN parties. Take your computer around to someone's house and you connect them all up and we play this. It was so much fun. It was so good. I cannot find this game anywhere right now. I think they've got a port of it somewhere on like Steam, but everyone says it crashes. Anyway, if anyone knows where I can find a copy of Command & Conquer Generals, let me know. And not an original one because that's on CD and we've got nothing to plug CDs into anymore. The very first Call of Duty comes out in 2003, and they left the switch on because, like, the Sorcerer's Apprentice, when he starts making those brooms, they can't stop making this game. What are they up to now? Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Black Ops 6? I don't know. The game I want to talk about mostly, though, this year is Knights of the Old Republic. This is a game by BioWare. It's a Star Wars game. It's a Star Wars RPG game. I'd never played RPG or role-playing games before because they'd always been kind of like very, like, fantasy, swords, kind of like Elder Scrolls kind of stuff that I wasn't really, never grabbed me, kind of like this world of mages and elves and stuff. Wasn't my bag so much. So I'd never really gotten to RPG games before. This is one of the best games I've ever played. And not just because it was a Star Wars game, like it just helped that it was a Star Wars game. And this year, the year I played it the most was 2004, which I'll talk about next time. But talking about this game, I had my computer in our lounge. So my flat, I would play this, and my flatmates, I had two flatmates that would walk by and see me playing this game. And one stopped one time and was like, "You're playing this game a lot. What's it about?" And he stopped and he looked and he started watching me play. And then he started a character. He started a playthrough of this game. So he started sharing the computer. And then the third one got hooked on this game. Long story short, there was a time where the three of us were all around the computer watching one of us play this game. And we'd set a timer for 2 hours. And then at the end of that 2 hours, we'd all get up and just swap seats. And then someone else would carry on with their playthrough. And we did this for at least a whole weekend once. My biggest confession is this game was so good. I called in sick to work to play it. I know my dad listens to some of these podcast episodes. Dad, I'm so sorry to tell you this. I called in sick one day to play this game. This is how fucking good it was. Okay? Yeah. Shame on the family, I know. Not so much more than your son turned out to be a comedian. It was that good. I never played the second one. I got the second one, but it kept crashing on my machine. I don't think my machine was good enough to play it. And I just never got around to playing the second one. I heard it wasn't as good. Let me know if you think it was good or better. I might give it a go. Anyway, Knights of the Old Republic. I think they've been talking about a remake of this for at least the last 10 years. It's like the Gambit movie. Like, is it coming out? Is it not? But I will cherish those memories of the original one forever. It was, I think at the time, probably the best game I'd ever played. Times Person of the Year is the American Soldier. I mean, playing it safe their time, just honoring everyone. And you know what? Also, I think propping up the... is this when the US go into Iraq? Under Bush? God, my politics is terrible, but like, what a way for Times to go. Let's up the morale by giving the Person of the Year to the American soldier, honouring all the men and women that have given their life for wars fought in the US's name. Yeah, go ahead. Now go to Iraq and find some weapons of mass destruction, please. On a personal level, apart from doing my degree and having a 21st and everything, the court jesters, who, if you remember from a couple of episodes ago, these are the guys that do the show Scared Scriptless, which was the improv show that would run every week, and it was the closest thing to a comedy show that Christchurch had. These guys, I had been called up to do a show with them in high school, and other kids had been chosen to become apprentice jesters and then full-time jesters, and I didn't get in, and I was devastated. Devastated at the time, but I kept going to their classes on Wednesdays. Anyway, in 2003, those court jesters decided to move away from the theatre. And the thing you got to remember, when they were with the theatre, when they put on their shows at Friday nights at the court theatre, they were given a venue. They were given the resources of the court, their website, their patrons, their mailing list, their everything. Like, so they had the support of the theatre with them. And they were getting paid to do it. So many improv companies were not getting paid. Improv troupes were not used to making money. Anyway, they moved away from the theatre and said, we're going to start doing our own thing. And they formed a new group called the Outwits, which they didn't do as well as when they were with the theatre. And all those people, all my friends that had been chosen to be jesters, went with them to be part of the Outwits. So the court theatre said, well, we'll get some new court jesters. We'll start again. And they got one of the old jesters from the previous generation, before the ones that moved away, called Patrick Duffy, to come in. And they auditioned for new jesters, and I was and I auditioned, and I got in. I was going to be a court jester, and I could not tell you. That was the best news I'd ever had in my life. That was the thing I was most excited about ever. I couldn't believe it when they said that you're in. And holy shit, it was the biggest news ever. And I remember when I didn't get in with the last group, I remember my dad had told me, because he'd seen me really upset, he was like, look, I bet this is going to be something that turns out to be something better. And it was. Because if I'd gone in there, I would have gone with the Outwits, and they went under a little bit. I don't think they're functional anymore. I don't know. But the point was, they had new jesters. I got in, and I got chosen to be part of the first show, the comeback, the reboot show. I was so nervous. And we went out, and it was great. And the jesters became my life, my everything for the next 7 years. We would do practices every Tuesday. And Patrick, he grilled us. My God, we went to improv boot camp. We thought we were okay before this. Every week he would call out every little trick we would try to get away with. He would analyze us. He would deconstruct us. We'd do a seed. He'd be like, no, get back up there. Do it this way. Blah, 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 blah. Where's the commitment? We got drilled. And everyone got it. Everyone got called out. Yeah, it was really good. Like at the time, it was like, oh God, jeez. But it was, it really stripped you back. And he'd be like, oh, you like doing funny voices. Yeah, I've noticed that. Like, you always kind of do this voice, don't you? Yeah, today you're not doing that. Okay, let's see what you got. And just he would see right through your little book of tricks, and he would take it all away and make you actually start improvising. You found new strengths and everything. It was so good. And you would either, so you do the rehearsal, and then we had a company of about 20, and they choose about maybe 5 players to be in the cast for that Friday's show. And then they choose another one to be the MC, and they would be organizing the show for that night. And when I would MC, when you MC, you choose the games, the format, you intro the show, you're in charge. You're the ringmaster. If I was playing, I would look forward all week to being on stage. I could not contain myself. I couldn't concentrate on anything else. I'd just be like, oh my God, I'm going to play. And if I was MCing, I would plan the games, the sort of, the scenes we're going to do, the types of scenes we're going to do, the format of the night, what I'm going to say in my intro, how I'm going to introduce each game, what I'm going to do. And I would do this obsessively. And I remember one time in one of my computer science classes, we had a project where we had to make a model of a spaceship, just a 3D model, like simple computer graphics things. And I did it. And in the lab, I saw another guy working on his. And he had not only made his, he had made it so you could switch perspective to be inside the cockpit, and also made it so you could fly the spaceship around. He'd made a flight simulator out of this project because he just liked it so much. And I suddenly realized I don't love computers the way he does. I am nowhere near into this as much as he is. Look how much I wish I was. Because he was not just doing it because he wanted to show off. You could tell he was doing it because he wanted to. He loved it. He couldn't stop himself. And that's the way I felt about when I would do anything with the Jesters or with this show. And I suddenly realized I think I'm better at this. Like I never had intuition with coding or doing that. I could do it. I was competent, but I would never be going like sitting there going, oh, after I'd done something like, oh, how can I make it better? What's gonna, what can I change here that's gonna make it that's gonna elevate it that much? And I would think about that with the Scared Scriptless shows. And I think that was the first inclination I had, that I think I love this more than what I'm actually gearing myself up to do. Anyway, that's pretty heavy there. I'm going to leave that there. Oh my goodness, this is a long one. Sorry for listening to my yabbering, and thank you very much for listening all the same. So sorry and thank you. And I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you. Bye.